Hello and welcome to Young Turks, the show that's been at the forefront of reporting on entrepreneurial excellence for 11 years. I'm Shireen Bhan. Innovation is a buzzword and it gets talked about at conferences, seminars, summits and television studios. But is enough thought being given to understand what innovation truly is and what it could mean for entrepreneurs and the economy? The government seems to be trying. I know it seems odd to talk about innovation and the government in the same breath, but our policymakers have declared 2010 to 2020 as the decade of innovation. The Prime Minister has put technocrat Sam Pitroda in charge of the National Innovation Council with the idea of preparing a roadmap for innovation in India. With an eye on innovations to address the challenges of access, equity, excellence and inclusion, the government organised the second Innovation Roundtable, which saw participation from heads of innovation policy from 50 governments across the world. Join us as we bring you all the highlights. The second Global Innovation Roundtable was held in the capital this month with the focus on leveraging technology in the 21st century to scale and sustain innovative solutions. Discussion centered on issues relating to nurturing the innovation ecosystem and outlining deeper collaboration among participating nations. The buzz was all about crowdsourcing innovations, the need for an India Inclusive Innovation Fund, and also what could be done to nurture innovation in the education system. Joining us on this show, we have with us advisor to the Prime Minister of India and Chairman of the National Innovation Council, Sam Pitroda. Also with us, Chairman of CA Technologies and also a member of the Innovation Council, Saurabh Srivastava, and Member Planning Commission, Arun Maira, who's also a part of the National Innovation Council. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on the show today. Sam Pitroda, let me start by asking you, this is the second Global Innovation Roundtable. What exactly is the agenda this time around and what are you going to be focusing on?
In the first roundtable, we got to know each other. In the second roundtable, our goal is to really focus on 4 or 5 big ideas that we could collectively work together. We have already identified 2. One about open government platform. We have jointly designed open government platform with the US team, and this platform is to really open and share data and documents. Similarly, we are looking at crowdsourcing for innovation. And we are in the process of developing this idea and products and services and all that. When that is done, we would like to share that as well with other countries.
Right, but Mr. Pitroda, you're here unveiling the National Innovation Policy. Pardon me, but the government is anything but innovative. So, is this going to be like any other government policy? How are you going to ensure effective implementation? And can you really mandate innovation, sir?
See, I think sometimes you news people are too cynical. Okay, there is no connection between these two. Our job is to focus on promoting innovations. But in a country of 1.2 billion people, these things don't happen overnight. People want quick fixes, instant gratification. Immediately will ask me, what have you invented last week? Okay? That's not the way to look at innovation. It's a process. Don't forget, we are building a nation and we are not building a company.
But Mr. Pitroda, how will you really assess the effectiveness, the efficiency of this policy?
You cannot assess efficiency in terms of percentage, 3 months, what have you produced, 6 months, what have you produced. You can't do those things. But ultimately, over a period of 10 years, you will see the impact of innovation.
Okay, let me go across to Saurabh Srivastava. Saurabh Srivastava, do you think the government's role should be limited only to funding, or do you believe the government should actually be the facilitator, providing the right linkages, the right platform, the right connections for entrepreneurs?
The single most important thing is for government is to create an enabling policy framework. It should be easy to start a company, easy to create a company. There should be skilled people available. financing should be available when it's needed, debt and equity. Now, if you look at it, so far the role of the government is to enable, create policy measures, not necessarily to write checks.
Arun Maira, do you also believe that the role of the government is to enable and not just write out checks?
Private lenders and investors don't want to take too much risk. They would rather wait to see the little plant growing into a substantial bush before they say, oh, bush can grow into a tree, now I'm going to give it fertilizer and support. But when it's very small, they're not sure whether it will grow up sufficiently. So we have to provide a combination of government assistance, government-supported financial assistance and private money to nurture the very small ideas. The ideas were at a very small stage.
Well, gentlemen, before I let you go, my final question to all of you. This has been a bad year as far as India is concerned. Our GDP figures are looking dismal. There is a sense of cynicism and skepticism about the India story. How would you react to what is going on, the kind of political discourse that we're seeing, the fact that we've now got, an activist movement on questioning policy decisions? What does it mean for the economy? What does it mean for the entrepreneurial ecosystem?
India's story is not over. India's story is beginning. When you have a country of 550 million people under the age of 25, the story has just begun. India will continue to grow at 8 to 10%. Give us some time. We got to put our pieces in place. We are living in very exciting times. Technology today offers great hope to solve the problems of tomorrow in a very different way than we have solved in the past. Not only the ICT and computer and information technology, but also biotech, nanotech, materials, genetics, engineering, microbiology, alternate energy sources. All of these things are going to be very important going forward in trying to solve the problems in the 21st century. And that's where the opportunity is. Just because, there is a little glitch, there's no need to panic. And also, don't worry about measuring success the way we have measured in the past. It's not about GDP, GNP, per capita income only. These were the measurements of the 20th century. Measurements of the 21st century are going to be very different.
Right. Saurabh Srivastava, would you agree with what Sam Pitroda is saying?
Oh, I agree completely with Sam. I think the India story has just begun. I mean, till barely 2 decades ago, we really didn't have an India story. This last decade has probably been one of the best decades for India in a few hundred years. And our entrepreneurs are just beginning to get started. For us, the world is an oyster. A temporary slowdown in our system shouldn't be seen to be anything like the India story is over. Because if I look at the grassroots, if I look at angel investments, they're growing at breakneck speed. In the angel group that I have, the Indian Angel Network, we used to do 2 or 3 investments a year. It went up to 5 and 6 investments a year. Now, when people think the economy is collapsing, we're doing 1 investment a month. There's no dearth of entrepreneurs. So I think this is a temporary phase. The sentiments are not great at the moment. These things pass. I think for us, the next 2 to 3 decades are going to be absolutely brilliant decades.
Arun Maira, let me get you to comment on that.
I would say we made some scenarios, the Planning Commission this time, for the 12th plan. And there are 3 scenarios there. One of which says that if we keep muddling along, as we seem to be in the last few years, the India growth story will fall apart. And what we are seeing is signs of it falling apart, okay? So we don't want a story which is a muddling along story or a falling apart story. So what's the third story? We found a third scenario. The third scenario is a scenario of what we have described as a headline as the flotilla forms and advances. Means that there are various actors in the system, within the states and between the states, which begin to align and proceed forward together. When we get into that mode of action, which I was saying earlier, the collaborative implementation action, we find the great possibilities of getting our growth back to 9 or 10%. It depends, of course, on a little bit on the external environment around India. But we can get back to those growth rates because the fundamentals within the country in terms of the unfulfilled needs, in terms of the large number of people that are trainable and can be very good resources and earners, is very high. So the fundamentals are there, but this ability to get things done, to collaborate and get things done is the key. And so our third and best scenario, the flotilla advances, is the scenario on which we are making our policy metrics.
Well, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it there. We appreciate you joining us here on this special episode of Young Turks, and we wish you the very best of luck with the National Innovation Policy. We hope that, like the government, the National Innovation Policy doesn't fall prey to bureaucratic red tape and more. But for now, it's time for us to head into another very short break here on Young Turks. There's a lot more coming up. Stay with us.